Eddie and Ben. Today we are talking about culture and how do you actually place value on culture and creating culture in a workplace? How do we quantify the importance of creating culture, and what does that look like when it's really hard to put a metric on what a good culture looks like? So with that, I'm going to throw it over to the group because I'm super curious what you all think and how could we actually quantify this quite amorphous subject?
Yeah, so what I've struggled with personally is I think everyone in this room would agree that culture is a very important factor. And we've all seen what happens when a positive culture impacts the work of the team. But there are definitely people who don't think in that way. I mean, we talk about integral, we talk about people being on different levels. Some people are more orange, some people are more interested in structures and tools, right? And they don't see the cultural elements and the cultural influence as much. And it can be kind of hidden, right? So my big struggle has been trying to kind of convince people who don't initially understand how important culture is. How do I speak their language to get their buy-in? How do I convince them that it's important in maybe metrics or whatever other kind of things that they need to see? If someone needs something very concrete, how do I give that to them in something that can be so difficult? How do we get them on board?
That I've done it in the past, and like this just worked in the very specific situation that I was in. I encouraged the team to do a once a week presentation on themselves. So one team member gets to highlight who they are outside of the team. They highlight their hobbies, their family, just to showcase who they are as people when they're not at work. And the idea was that we would be connecting that on a more human level. And at first I got some pushback from leadership thinking it was this just like silly idea that we were dedicating 5 minutes a week to. And then 2 months later, everyone started talking to each other differently. And leadership did say kind of resistantly, like, that was a good idea. Things are different now. But I couldn't put a number on that. Like, I just knew that I was told 2 months later that it was a good idea. But to pinpoint why is still really hard for me to do today. But I do know that the team worked better after. And I just like, how do you put a number on that?
I would like to see if Ben has suggestions other than his patented move, which is trust me, because it sounds like we might have to fall back on that one again.
I know. I think it's probably a case of trust me, or my experience has led to this conclusion. I think, you know, the metrics driven people amongst us, so maybe like, let's say the orange people amongst us might like to say, okay, I want to see these metrics move in this direction as a result of a team building exercise or something like that. And of course, there are so many variables in the workplace that trying to spot an increase in velocity or an increase in quality or something like that, just because we went on a team night out, is going to be pretty difficult, I think. Where I would tend to illustrate where culture really it moves from being kind of a little bit amorphous to an asset of the team is in times of stress. So when things need to get done, you would find that people with a good culture are probably more likely to take the rough with the smooth and probably likely to advance the whole rather than themselves. So pointing to those instances where in the past, everyone had gone at 5 o'clock and left one person sat at the end of the desk trying to do a release versus, okay, I've worked with teams who have built their culture and come up with a team culture, and everyone is sat there, or at least more than one person is sat there trying to do a release. So I think there's, thinking about when things don't go well is a good opportunity to illustrate the effects of culture.
And I also think that there has to be an alignment between the culture that we want to have and the strategy that we want to have also to grow the business. If culture goes to one way and strategy on the other, then there's going to be a gap. And then what's going to be more important are results. That's mostly what happens, especially when things get tough. So culture needs to be in alignment with the strategy of the business. And for me, also, culture means symbols, behaviors, and systems. That's something that you can quantify as well. So Leading by example is a way to influence people on, okay, this is our culture. Do you like it? Do you feel like you fit here? Because maybe that person says, doesn't work for me. If it is too open, there are less systems, there's not so many things, and maybe there's people more with a mindset, amber mindset that needs processes, that needs, I don't know, I need to have my office. And now there's open spaces, right? Those are part of culture as well. That also means, okay, people can choose as well. I don't want to be here, maybe I need to go somewhere else. Many people say, okay, this is our culture, and there's a poster hanging on the wall. If you do not live those values as you work with people, then that's gonna be only a poster on the wall. It's not going to have any meaning to anybody. So that's where, okay, how can I convince you, right? And we don't want to convince. I think the idea is that people engage by themselves, and they believe that those core values and culture means something to them. And the way for me to do it is by leading by example. If we say that we value we are open to people, we're always willing to talk to people, but then when you walk and you see all the leaders in their offices with the doors closed, then that's a symbol, and there's something that it's not in alignment. So that's what I mean by leading by example, is to live what we are saying here.
Yeah, Luci, what you said about this idea of strategy and culture needing to be aligned, right, being really important. It sounds to me like you've experienced that in the real world, right? Do you have any stories you want to give about, something that didn't work because they weren't aligned, or any company maybe you've helped align the two and they found a great success afterwards? Do you have any kind of really example that sticks out in your mind?
Yes, it happens to us that maybe the HR department talks to us and they say, we want to work on culture. We want to help leaders and offer them with tools for them to guide their teams. And when you start working with them, we realize that there's a culture that is very results oriented, and many of the resources are there. And maybe they do that just to have a check. Okay, so we did this training, and then when things get tough, those tools that the leaders acquired, maybe they are not put into practice. What I mean by this is, instead of pushing teams, instead of being like, we need to do this, it doesn't matter how. While in the training, you were taught that, okay, let's understand other, perspectives, other times of the teams. Can we make a plan so that people do not get so stressed? Then when things are not so easy, they tend to go that way. And that we've seen a lot. So that's when we had conversations with our clients that we cannot work only working with the HR department on this training. We need to do an integral intervention with your organization, because if we can work with your leaders, but then, and also maybe middle managers, but if the leadership team does not buy this project to work on culture, to be more constructive, to allow people to speak out loud, then that's going to happen, and you're going to lose a lot of money, because maybe we did a lot of effort, everybody was committed to that, but then in the practice, it doesn't happen.
I'm curious, when we talked a lot about how we've improved, or like how you've seen culture to improve and ways that you could go about it. But what's the payoff for that? Like, what is the payoff for leading by example? Like, if someone leads by example, does it mean that their employees are going to be even better employees? Like, what is the outcome that we look for when we're looking at improving our culture? Like, where have you seen it in what you've done?
People are more committed to the organization, and they can be themselves. They can excel. They can to suggest ideas, to add value to the organization because they feel that they are comfortable, know that they can be, okay, who they want to be. I think that's key when we are talking about culture. But it's important that the individual as well is aware of what that person wants, right? To be clear about his or her purpose, to see, okay, am I aligned with this culture? Do I want to be here? People more committed, and more happy, they perform better results are achieved. But that's there are numbers that I don't have them right now, but there are numbers that you can quantify that performance increases when people are more committed, engaged, and more happy at work.
That's awesome.
Sure.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense when you have the buy-in from the people that are working with you and they buy into the culture and values. They're going to be more motivated to work and to do work that they like to do. That's awesome. Well, we are at time. So curious to see what everyone else out there thinks. Curious about how do you put a metric on your culture, on what are some things that you do in your own workplace that you find have been proven to be successful. So thank you so much, Ben, Eddie, and Lucci. We will see you next time.